extra go into discussions of that. Next week we shall be having the national budget presented to the Ugandans, 48.1 trillion shilling budget, and I'm telling you, every Ugandan is actually waiting for that. Every Ugandan has their different opinion, everyone has their different view in regards to what they believe the Ministry of Finance should do and what the government should do for them, because clearly when you look at the ongoing crisis that we are facing in Uganda today, there are very many, and one of which is that the cost of living is quite expensive lately. Looking at the prices of commodities, essentials, and looking at the prices of fuel, they are very high lately. So you would still want to think of something, and you would still want to consider something to do with this different destinations and this. If you're to at least provide room for getting to understand that. But now, as we're actually heading into a discussion pretty much this particular moment, is that we are going to be looking at how we can reduce the cost of credit to boost socio-economic recovery of Uganda's economy. We are looking at the next financial year as one for economic recovery. And joining me this morning is the Director of Development Planning at the National Planning Authority, Mr. Asman Goloba. Doctor. Is it doctor? Yes, Dr. Asman Goloba. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you again, sir.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. First of all, if you're to give us a preamble of the National Planning Authority before we even go back into what we're going to discuss.
National Planning Authority, we are mandated to plan for this country. In particular, we are supposed to develop a comprehensive and integrated development plans. And these are situated in the vision. That vision is delivered through 6 NDPs. Currently we have delivered recently the current plan we are implementing the 3rd National Development Plan.
Okay.
But within that big mandate, we advise the President on issues of development. We liaise with you, the civil society, to evaluate government, to do a bit of monitoring and research to inform policy direction.
Okay. Now, back into our topic, economic recovery. But first, if you to at least help us understand, what has the National Planning Authority, how are you helping shape up at least our economy as of now?
Okay. I think the starting point is where I started from the development plan. We are currently implementing the 3rd National Development Plan. We are in the 2nd year. Now, and that 3rd National Development Plan foresees where Uganda should be. And in that, there are priorities that we have set out. And the way we are shaping this is that we developed this plan coming from the foundation that has been laid. Because as government, there's a lot of foundation that has been laid in terms of security, macroeconomic stability, and a lot of investment in infrastructure, particularly roads and energy sector, where you are currently having excess electricity supply. Now, building on that, the 3rd National Development Plan tries to say, having laid this foundation, how do we take incomes to the pockets of people? So the goal of the plan is improving household incomes. We are going to households, and then the welfare of Ugandans. And how do we achieve that is by using the resource that they have through trying to industrialize, create more jobs.
Okay.
So we have 5 objectives of the plan that are all geared to making sure not only are we adding value on the commodities that we have, but we are supporting the private sector to deliver the growth impetus. Then we continue on the infrastructure developments to unlock the potential of Ugandans. Then invest more in the human capital in terms of health and education. And lastly, make sure that government is a bigger driver to support and crowd in private investment.
Okay.
So it's on that front.
Let's talk, before we even dive deep into our topic, we are looking at economic recovery. I'm still seeing chances of us recovering being minimal with the crisis that we are in. That is my own opinion. But if, in your view, how possible, rather, can we recover as a country?
Actually, this process of recovery is not only unique to Uganda, because this crisis that we had, it did not only affect Uganda, it's a global crisis. First we had and by the way, this crisis started all the way to 2008, where I had the global financial crisis. Then it came back, recently COVID came in, where we had lockdowns. Then now we are having the Ukraine and the inflation what. Actually, all these things you are seeing in terms of what all these are building up, it's not just come all of a sudden. So, but the message I normally tell colleagues that a crisis should never be taken in a bad state. A crisis is always an opportunity. The onus on us is to identify this opportunity and move forward. So in terms of Uganda, if you compare Uganda to other economies, the crisis hasn't hit us as bad as it has hit other economies. And we are also, in terms even of response, we haven't panicked. If you listen to the president's address yesterday, I was happy with the way the president put it. Because we have a leader who doesn't panic and he takes hard decisions during a crisis. And that's the type of leader you're looking for. Now, in light of that, in terms of recovery, it's about us looking for the right opportunities and taking the hard decisions in order to recover. Now, I'm not optimistic that the priorities we put out in the plan, in NDP3, if we're able to embark on them and deliver them through the budget, national budget, we'll be able to recover even on a stronger path than before.
Okay, let's also look at the National Development Plan, the NDP3. How has it contributed to our development in any way?
And that's where I started from, is by identifying the priorities. And not only identifying the priorities, once you identify the priorities, the budget that you are going to listen to. I know we completely divorce the budget from the plan, but this plan is what is going to inform the priorities in the budget. And this is the plan where when you get what the president is talking about, how these are coming from the plan. How? Is that the focus on us being an integrated and independent society and improving household income is from the plan. What do we need to do? What we need to do here is that in the plan we are focusing on what we refer to as agro-industrialization. And if you compare from where we have been in the past and the conversation we have been having around tea, we are saying, no, for you to address the impetus, the problem in agriculture, you don't look at agriculture production alone. You need to look at the entire value chain, connect the dots. Starting from agriculture, from research, how you produce, and all the way to the market. So if you look at the market in isolation of this road, you don't get the picture. So learning from the past, we have been very good at discussing issues of production. You want to distribute seedlings, when you produce a bumper harvest, you do not talk about the market. So in terms of development and the focus, what you are going to see in the budget, is to look for it from a programmatic approach to ensure that the entire value chain is addressed, for all the way from production to the market, and adding value. It's the same conversation we are having under minerals. So in terms of the plan, we are advising government, you don't need to focus on all the minerals, focus on 5 minerals. One of which is already we are starting that you are seeing a lot of developments happen in the petroleum sector, and this way again I appreciate the guidance from His Excellency to say we need a refinery, because it's not about just you exporting petroleum in its raw form, but you may not get actually much from the petroleum resources, but the multiplier of the investments that come from that oil refinery to be able to boost the other factories around that area is key. It's the same conversation you're having under iron and steel. The president came in and banned export of raw material in iron and steel, the ore. But what is happening now is that we are trying to make sure the next budget tries to look for how do we ensure that we build a steel industry around our iron and our iron ore in Moko and other areas. Same thing with phosphate. So basically, how has the plan informed the way we are developing? It's the plan that is informing the government priorities and the budget.
Now, let's head into our topic, reducing costs of credit to boost socio-economic recovery of Uganda's economy. What is your take on reducing the credit? first of all, and how can we reduce it?
Actually, this whole thing is again why I push it back to the plan.
Oh, okay.
In one of when we are making the plan and diagnose the problems this country faces, particularly the private sector, one of the bigger problems we realize is the cost of credit. The cost of credit is not actually, we are not only talking about the recovery. It has been a problem for Ugandan economies.
Okay.
Why? Because if you compare Uganda to other economies, you look, the main indicator you look at for the health of the economies, private sector credit growth. Uganda's private sector credit growth in the last 3 years has averaged around 8% annually. That's too low. Okay. For countries like Kenya and the other countries, China, when it was growing, this private sector credit was in the tune, it was growing in the tune of between 20 to 30%. What do I mean? Is that you gauge how the private sector is borrowing to know the vibrance of the economy.
Okay.
For us, the private sector, the businesses you are seeing, a common Ugandan uses is savings or uses equity. It doesn't go to the market to borrow because the cost at which is borrowing. I'll give you an average. The interest rates have been around between 20 to 24%. It requires you a business to give you a return of above 20 or close to 30% for you to be able to borrow in such a market. Now, because of that, credit has been able to dictate the way the economy is going. It has been able to structure the economy in a certain way. How? If you realize, we have been having conversation of the structure of the economy to say services are paying more in Uganda. It's the businesses that are making more money in terms of the people who are doing trading, even housing. It's because that's the type of the credit market that we have has been able to push the economy towards that reward. In this type of credit, there is no way you can borrow to set up a farm, to set up a factory. Because in a factory, you need first patient capital. This capital should be patient with you for the next 5 years to make losses before you start equipping. But in the capital you have in the current market is you borrow today. 2 months down the road, you must start repaying a loan. And in the business terms, in all that time, you can take it 2 to 5 years just setting up the business.
Okay.
So that has been, it's a bigger problem. It's not about recovery. It is a bigger economic problem that has the government plan, as we have noticed.
Okay.
And we are trying to look for ways of addressing this. 2 weeks ago, we had a forum. It's called the National Development Policy Forum that is hosted by NPA. It was a public forum, and this is the topic we are discussing. How do we go around it? So in terms of even looking at the current recovery, it is a big foundation we need to lay going forward if we are to see this economy where I want it to go.
Okay.
And we proposed a few policy issues. I can sum them into 3. One, it was around the government is part of the culprit of this cost of credit. Why? Because of our borrowing, the domestic borrowing. We are crowding out the private sector. Banks prefer to make business with the government. They make a killing. So how do we limit that as government? It's a conversation we are having. The second issue is around the banking policy reforms. And here banking policy reforms is related to a few things that, because this cost of credit, if you break it down, 61% of the interest cost is because of the cost the way banks run, the capital costs, the ones that they use, issues, the way the building, operational costs basically. Now, to reduce some of that, there are a few things that are required by policy. For instance, they know your customer requirements. For every customer, you need the paperwork that goes around there. Banks generally spend close to 2 to 3 billion annually to maintain those records. So if you have reduced that in the digital world, you could significantly reduce the cost of credit.
Okay.
There are issues related to the model within which banks operating. Our banks operate a prime lending model, meaning that they target the niche, the cream people, and they forget about the lower people. So this has an implication in the way we manage the cost of credit, including fair lending practices that are not what. But big that should be sorted out by government is we Ugandans don't pay. So currently the banks are complaining is that close to 70 trillion is tied up in the courts of law. Okay. 7 trillion out of about 17 trillion that is maintained by banks is tied up in courts of law because of disputes between you are supposed to pay, did not pay, and that delay for court to resolve affects the cost of credit because they price risk a bit higher because of that. So these are things that we need to sort out as government. So we had a whole policy forum and we have done a bit of work in this area.
Okay.
The last issue is related to, for us in terms of technical, we look at the interest rate spreads between how much interest a bank is giving in terms of deposit and how much is the lending. The interest spread in Ugandan banks is very wide. That signals something. It signals the competition. There is not enough competition. It is an oligopolistic market. So you need to sort out that oligopolistic market. There are two ways you can sort that out. Is by either increasing competition, where and here government has been, it allows in any banker to come in. But even when the banks come in, it's still 3 banks that are dominating the market. So it is almost these 3 banks, Standard, Centenary, whatever. In fact, whatever, not Standard, Stanbic. Whatever Stanbic does, all the other banks have to follow. So how do we break this? So what the way we are suggesting is maybe it's high time government came back and invested in banking. And it's not that government is not in this, it's not there because we have about a stake in 3 banks, Post Bank, Housing Finance, and Pride Microfinance. But this stake together contributes just to 7% of the market. We are saying if government came in slowly and invested to a tune of 20%, it could be able to influence the way the market behaves. Now, it's not that any one of these solutions will work out. You need, as you are sorting out policy issues, as you are sorting out issues of courts, as you are sorting out how to reduce the cost of the way banks run, you need to look at all these things in entirety to be able to influence credit flow.
All right.
But in the short term, in terms of economic recovery, government has come in terms of the way they are capitalizing UDB, in terms of credit, the credit lines that are put up for recovery in several banks, in the Bank of Uganda, that we believe if they are well implemented. I know the private sector has been saying the rules to get that money has been stringent. If we are able to get to support the ones that deserve to get this money, we'll be able to recover faster.
All right. And then lastly, because we're running out of time, with this issue of credit and all that, it takes me to the issue of government borrowing and all that situation. Do you believe it is, if we continuously borrow, would be good for our economy?
Borrowing is a double-edged sword. If you have a very good development idea, it's very good to borrow. If it's very good to borrow. And how do you say this? If the rate at which you are borrowing, the economy is able to grow faster than that rate, meaning that for every amount you are borrowing, it's able to create more jobs than the rate at which you are borrowing. Borrowing is good. Because you need it to boost the economy. Without it, what? But if you are, now this is why you tie it to where you are putting the money. If the money you are not putting it in your priorities, the economy is not growing faster, then borrowing becomes bad. So you can't do, if you have very good ideas, you can't do without it. You need it to grow faster. The challenge would be if you are using it and the macro effect on the economy is not good enough.
Okay.
That's where the problem comes.
Okay, and all right, from that situation, I would want you to give us your last remarks, Mr. Asuman Goloba, in regards to the general overview of the country's economy.
The general overview of the country's economy, we are under crisis.
Okay.
And within a crisis, there comes opportunities. Because under crisis, you're able to do things you wouldn't have done. Let us harness this crisis to be able to identify the opportunities. In line with the president, this is the time now we can do that in the integrated, independent and resilient economy. The beauty with this is that National Planning Authority has defined well the direction we should be taking the National Development Plan. Let us focus on that and ask whether the budget is delivered on these priorities. With that, the future is bright. We'll be able to recover then on a stronger footing if we are to reduce wastage within expenditures, government expenditures.
Okay, all right, and thank you very much for that. And that is Asuman Goloba, Dr. Asuman Goloba. I tend to forget the other. Asuman Goloba, PhD, I think. Or I said doctor.
Oh, whichever, but I prefer just Asuman Goloba.
Asuman Goloba, who is the Director, Development Planning at the National Planning Authority. And we are breaking it down with the SMB Extra here, trying to break down the issue of reducing cost of credit to boost socio-economic recovery for the country's economic status today. And with that, we can surely call it a day now. Coming up after is Financial Markets with Anthony Sebale. Stick around and have a blessed good morning and a good day. Till tomorrow morning, I'll be right back.